It's not private anymore. It's a socialized phenomena, and that is driving people. And I see this so much when I'm down there. A lot of the people that they're coming down there and they don't quite know it like that, right? So they're still stuck in that machinery, and they want to go to come to a keto-centric medicine. So I think part of therapy today is educational in the sense that you're educating yourself about what you're up against in terms of, again, to use the term neoliberalism or whatever, globalization, whatever term you want to use. This world we're living in is making people sick in a very unique and very, very unique way. Like, we're in uncharted territory today. So I think part of getting better is educating yourself of like, oh yeah, that's making me sick. I don't have to pay attention to that anymore. Like, I don't have to do that, So, and that of course is very hard because part of the experience of being human, I call it like the keeping up with the Joneses feature. Mm-hmm. I mean, keeping up with the Joneses, that's a fundamental feature of human life. It's fundamental. I mean, the 10th commandment deals with that. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's goods. I mean, that is addressing this keeping up with the Joneses feature that's inherent to human subjectivity. So the problem today is that has been like put on anabolic steroids to like 100 times what it used to be, whereas you could deal with it at a much easier level. Right. Today it's just like, it's so intense that it's just like, I don't know, like crushing people or swallowing people. I don't know how you want to say it, but it's becoming to the point where desire is being, because that's what that commandment is dealing with. It's dealing with desire, right? Which is a feature of human subjectivity. It's being so activated to a point that it's making people sick, mentally, spiritually, emotionally. Yeah.
And we were speaking a little bit before the podcast, and you were mentioning something that I found very interesting. That if you were to mention, to someone in a ketos or that they should drink ayahuasca, they would laugh at you, maybe?
Yeah. Well, most people in a ketos, most Peruvians, don't like ayahuasca. It's not that they don't like it. They have no interest in drinking it.
And you had a reason for why, which was
well, I think that, well, there's a couple of reasons why, and I think historically that's been associated with shamanisms and shamans and people, and I find that a lot of people in Peru have like a healthy, I don't want to say fear in like a bad way, but like a healthy kind of like the shamans over there, let's kind of just mind our own business because they could maybe put a curse on us or kind of do something. Right. So I think drinking ayahuasca in Peru is like, it's necessary when you need it. If like something real, like if you have to go see a shaman, because shamans still do play a role in terms of diagnosing and healing and helping people, but traditional medicine does too. I mean, or Western medicine does. You go to the hospital if you're sick too, down there. But sometimes you go see the shaman if you have to. And the other reason I think too is that the paucity or the pathology of a lot of Peruvian, it's material things, right? Lack of money, or I've noticed that people in Peru don't have a very good diet, so there's some maybe diabetes or obesity issues, or people not that healthy. Whereas in America, we have an overabundance or a surplus of material goods, and people tend to be more health conscious in America, at least what I find. But the problem in America is much more psychic and emotional and spiritual, you could say. So, and that of course is synonymous with ayahuasca, how it can heal. So I mean, most people that I find, and this is not to glamorize things, but most people in the ketos are just whatever. Like, they're not really caught up in the psychic double talk that Americans are always questioning their, they're just kind of living. It's not as a performative, reflexive culture as we have right here. Where it's just like this kind of constant interrogation by what Freud would call the superego, where it's like we're constantly questioning ourselves all day long. It's not like that there. Yeah.
It's interesting that, because again, it goes back to what I mentioned earlier. I think that by changing your environment, you can really make some things a little bit easier.
I think so. I mean, you got to be careful with that, because people always say, like, wherever you go, you take yourself with you. That's like the old saying. But I do think that an environment can be changing an environment can be helpful.
Well, from a keeping up with the Joneses standpoint, right? I mean, my guess is that down there is a little less
well, for
powerful.
For sure. I mean, you can live down that. I mean, in terms of that specifically, then I mean, if keep it, to use this term again, keeping up with the Joneses, which by the way, keeping up with the Joneses is reflecting like a primal subjective feature of human life. It's not just like, this is like the core of what it means to be human. If that's something you're concerned about, then it probably wouldn't be a good idea to live in West Hollywood or the Lower East Side or Notting Hill or a place like that, right? Because this is where you're going to, or Brookline, wherever, yeah, or Williamsburg or wherever. This probably wouldn't be the best place to live for you, because you're going to be this aspect, which is usually unconscious for people, of yourself is going to be activated all day long, 24/7. So if this is something you're worried about, then you want to go live in a place that's not quite like that.
Right.
And then it'll be lowered a little bit.
Right.
Now, the internet puts a whole monkey wrench in that, right? Because now you have a thing in your pocket that can activate that wherever you are all day long. And that, by the way, is in many ways the point of this type of technology, right? Because how it integrates with, capitalism as a system is designed to activate that. So you just buy stuff, get stuff, to reproduce it, right? This was something that Marx talked about, 150 years ago, 170 years ago. So living in a place like Aikido's, that's not activated at all. You're walking on the street, everyone's just like whatever, So it's liberating in a way to live it like that, to not have to worry about what other people are doing, and just be yourself,
What's next for you? Where can people find what you're up to? And you mentioned a novel in the works. What do you got going on?
So I have a few. I think I have right now several more writing projects that I'm working on that I'm just about done with. I tend to work on multiple things at once. So I have my novel is pretty much done. I'm just kind of putting the finishing touches on it. And then I think this year I'll probably have 3 or 4 more what I call theoretical texts. I have a book called Boxing and Cinema that I actually wrote about 4 years ago that I'm going to put out this year. And it's a short book, but it's I did write a book on boxing 3 or 4 years ago called Postscript on Boxing. And this is a book that it was almost going to be part of that, but I just kind of took it out. And it's just it's like an analysis of a series of boxing films, like $1 Million Baby and On the Waterfront, and it's kind of showing the transformation of industrial capitalism to post-industrial capitalism, and how the elimination of boxing from society is reflective of certain aspects of our life. So that book. Then I have another book that I wrote on the situation of gentrification in Boston. So and then I think, I've been thinking the past couple of weeks, it's like I've written several books over the past few years, and I have several more this year, and then I think I'm going to take a little break from writing. My brain's a little bit tired, and then I'm interested in maybe more creative stuff, like getting back into film and doing some more, maybe another novel or something like that. But my theory is kind of, I feel like it's coming to an end a little bit, in terms of that style of writing. I want to move on to something else. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And then my website is www.brianculkin.com. All my books are there and everything else. So
awesome.
Yeah.
I read the Ayahuasca dialogues, and that was great. That was a very informative read. And I'll put you on the spot in the spirit of the holiday season here in terms of giving. Yeah. If you could gift one book to your friends or family, what might it be and why?
I was just thinking what my favorite, I read a lot of novels, and I was just thinking what my favorite novel was of this decade that I read. And, it's interesting that my favorite novel of this decade came out in 2010, so it was the first novel of the first year, and it was it was written by one of my favorite writers. My favorite novelist of all time is Saramago, who's a famous Portuguese writer. He's been, like my idol. I really, really love all this stuff. And then another one of my really favorite ones is Murakami, who's the famous Japanese writer, and he wrote a book in 2010 called 1Q84, and it's one of my favorite novels of all time, and I've read it like 3 times, and it's 1,000 pages. Wow. And I absolutely love that novel, and it's like, if I could say it's my novel of the decade, and it's an amazing story about it's a love story, really. That's what it is. It's an amazing love story, but it has all these twists and turns about a cult, and and a hit woman, and it's just an amazing novel. And if I could recommend any novel, I'd recommend that one for this decade, because it's a lot of his novels deal with memory, I would say, big time, about like how we're losing our place in the world. And a lot of his novels deal with like this kind of fissure in reality where like you can't quite tell if it's like real or if it's not. It's like, what's going on here? So there's an eeriness about some of his stuff, but all of his novels in some way deal with the redeeming power of love, which I really like his stuff. And then of course he's just an incredible writer, like just a beautiful writer. So that's what I would do. 1Q84 would be my recommendation. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we're gonna wrap things up here, but just want to say thank you so much for your time.
I enjoyed being here. Thank you for having me.